We are still on the topic of kinds of obligations. This time, let us look at divisible and indivisible obligation. Okay. So this these types of obligation class refers actually to the question of whether or not the object or the prestation involved is divisible or indivisible. That's why an obligation is called divisible obligation where if the object is capable of partial fulfillment, and it is indivisible when the object is not capable of partial fulfillment. Okay. But even if the object is physically divisible, but the parties intended it to be indivisible, or the law provides for its indivisibility, then the object is called indivisible because the parties or the law involved considers the object to be indivisible even if physically it is divisible. So in this case, the intention of the parties or the intention of the law will prevail. Hence, the object is indivisible, and so that the obligation will also be indivisible. Okay. However, if the object is not physically divisible, the obligation is always indivisible. Okay. This is an absolute rule. Okay. Basta gani indivisible ang object, whether we like it or not, the obligation is indivisible. Okay. The obligation is presumed lang class ha. This is a disputable presumption. The obligation is presumed indivisible where there is only one creditor and only one debtor. So presumed lang. Pwede mo siya i-refute later on that the object involved is divisible. So for divisible obligation, example, D agreed to pay C 10,000 in 2 equal monthly installments. Here, the obligation of D is divisible because of its capability of partial performance. Okay, so partial lang ang bayad. Therefore, the obligation is divisible. So kinds of division, the division may be according to quality. For example, A and B, nanalo sila. They agreed to divide the winnings as follows. Yung brand new car para kay A and 1 million para kay B. So in this case, the division is based on quality. Hindi siya necessarily according to the amount because number 2 is the quantitative division. This is according to the quantity or the amount. Example, A and B agreed to divide their income equally. So regardless of anong yung income na yun, the amount will be divided equally. So it becomes quantitative division. Number 3 is ideal or intellectual division. The division exists only in the mind. For example, A and B bought a car as co-owners. So even if there is only one car, in the minds of A and B, hati sila doon. Although they cannot physically divide a car. So kinds of division to class 1, 2, 3. So let us look at indivisible obligation. Okay. The object here is physically indivisible or where the parties agreed that the object will be indivisible even if the object can be physically divided. Example, D agreed to pay C 10,000 on October 31, 2020. So the obligation of D here is indivisible although the money can be physically divided because the intention of the parties is that the obligation must be fulfilled at one time and as a whole. Okay. So si D magbabayad ng buong 10,000 kay C on October 31. Kahit na silent yung problem, the parties actually intended that the 10,000 will be indivisible. Okay. Example number 2. D obliged himself to deliver to C a specific car on October 31, 2020. Here, the obligation is indivisible because the car, cannot be divided and must be delivered as a whole. Yung example number 1 class is the parties intended that the 10,000 is indivisible, so it is indivisible. And number 2 naman, okay, the object involved is a car, which is physically indivisible, so the obligation is also indivisible. So let us look at the kinds of indivisibility. Number 1 is legal indivisibility. Okay, if the law itself says that the obligation or the object involved is indivisible, or the obligation is indivisible, then you have to follow what the law says. So that is legal indivisibility. Number 2 is conventional indivisibility. Okay, where the parties agreed that the obligation is indivisible. Even if the object is actually divisible, you should follow the intention of the parties. Then number 3, natural indivisibility, where the nature of the object or possession does not admit of division. Like a car, naturally you cannot divide it. Or the singing of the song by the singer. Okay. Pwede ba yun putulit? First stanza lang muna, bukas naman ang second stanza. The next day na naman ang chorus. So by the nature of the song, it is indivisible. Obligations to do and not to do are generally indivisible. Okay, generally. Pero may exceptions yan. However, if their performance or non-performance is not required to be continuous, then it is divisible. For example, obligation to sing a song. Maybe song number 1, kakantahin ngayon. Bukas ang song number 2. Then sa sunod na araw ang song number 3. Pwede yun. In that case, okay, hindi siya continuous ang performance, then that obligation becomes divisible. But generally, obligations to do and not to do are generally indivisible. Ito, pinaghalo. Joint obligation and an indivisible obligation is called a joint indivisible obligation. Okay? This constitutes the middle ground between a joint obligation and a solidary obligation. Remember, class, that in a joint obligation, the parties are individually obliged proportionately. Okay? In contrast to solidary obligation. Sa joint obligation, share-share sila. However, the object involved is indivisible. So, paano nila hahatiin yung object according to their share? Yun ang problema dito. Okay, so sa example, A, B, and C are jointly liable to give D a car valued at 300,000. On the date of delivery, only A and B are willing to deliver, but not C. Now, take note, class, that the object is a car. It is indivisible. Pero, they are jointly liable. So, they are liable only at 10,000 each. Kasi hindi naman ito solidary joint. However, on the date of delivery, si A and B are willing, but si C is not. Hindi naman pwede hatiin nila yung car sa 3 parts. I-deliver ni A yung part na proportionate na part niya, si B, and then si C wala, hindi mag-deliver. Hindi pwede yun kasi indivisible yung car. Okay? In this case, D has no action against C for the delivery of the car. Because as a joint debtor, C is only liable for 100,000. And so is A and B. Tig 100,000 lang ang liability nila. So, anong gagawin ni creditor? Since the car is indivisible, D should proceed against all the debtors. Okay? C may ask for damages only or 10,000 each from A and B, yung share nila kasi wala naman silang kasalanan. But for C, pwede siya mag-ask ng 100,000 pala plus damages. Okay? So, si C, ang ipapile niya na kaso is 100 kukunin niya kay A and kay B. Walang damages because A and B are willing to deliver. Pero kay C, kukolekta siya ng 100 plus damages because of the unwillingness to fulfill the obligation. Okay?